Look at the size of this goddamn thing. Who's that guy behind the headstone?
Hey folks, thanks for tuning in to Guitar Magic. This episode was done in cooperation with Henriksen Amps and the Archtop Foundation, which is the custodian of the world-famous Blue guitar collection. This video features Tom Ribbecke, Tyler Wells, and Meagen Wells, three world-class luthiers in that collection. 30 years ago, Tom was among the first cohort of Blue luthiers, and now Tyler and Meagen, who both apprenticed with Tom, were invited to be among the second cohort. This interview explores what their instruments mean to the guitar world and them as luthiers. You can't help but notice the impact of the relationship between a master and his apprentices. But wait, there's more. This is your last chance to enter the $1,200 Henriksen Blue 6 amp giveaway. We're drawing the winner just a few weeks after the release of this video, so be sure to click the link in the description to enter. These amps are amazing. It costs you nothing to enter, so why not try to get lucky? After the interview, I included some footage of the great Sean McGowan playing Tyler Wells' Blue guitar at the new Blue debut that took place at the Rocky Mountain Archtop Festival. And finally, after Sean's guitar sorcery, I'll show you one of Tyler Wells' guitars up close and personal. This isn't the Blue guitar he made for the Blue Guitar Collection, but it is a Blue guitar of the same model. The biggest difference between the two is that this one is available for purchase. So if you want to start your own Blue guitar collection, make sure to watch that part. And stick around to the end because I'll share a secret code to get you an extra entry into the Henriksen amp giveaway. All right, thanks for being here. I hope you have a good time. Here we go. Hey everyone, thanks for making time to talk. This is kind of amazing, a historic moment. I thought, Tom, I could start with some questions for you. I know you were part of the original cohort of Blue builders.
Yeah.
You've got one of the original Blue, now shading towards purple. Blue guitars. I know that guitar had a big impact, well, in the guitar world, but I think it had a big impact on you too.
Yeah.
What does that guitar mean to you? What did it do for you in your career, your life?
Well, first of all, thanks for doing this. And this is an incredible moment with the three of us sitting here. There's always magic for us. You know, I think we've always felt that way. And it's been a blessing. This particular instrument is, well, it really was one of those times when I was talking about yesterday where you change your direction, making the decision to make this more of a modern instrument. I delayed it for a couple of weeks, and I put it in the hands of Chinery, and after that, and it really did change my career arc because of the decision to do a more modern instrument. But the instrument itself was, it was a spectacular project. It was a community building project. It was magical in the truest sense of the word, and we became so bonded to each other, this group of original Blue makers, that we are still to this day. It was like there haven't been 30 years between the times we've seen each other. When I was sitting with Bill Cummins on the stage, I was reliving the moment when he was 35 and I was 45, and we were sitting on the bus going to the Smithsonian, he and his two little girls, talking about the potential future. This is the magic of 30 years later, you know?
Yeah.
This particular guitar, however, is, actually, it sounds great, so I'm really happy.
Yeah.
Somebody's done a great job of setting these things up now.
Would you mind just standing it up a little bit and just sort of walk through, you know, what is this build? What are people out there seeing? I know there's books on it and it's been talked about, but for the purposes of whoever's new to this, they should just know what's going on here.
Okay, well, this is an 18-inch instrument. It has a Sitka spruce top. It has quilted big leaf maple back and sides, and maybe in the light you can see this a little better, the spectacular quilt. And the back is a little bluer, a little maybe purpler than the front. And the question about the color comes up constantly because by the time this was on the stage at Wolf Trap, it was this color. And I remember seeing it as the sun was going down, and my guitar was the only one that wasn't blue on the stage. I used an aniline dye. That was the original color that was about 40 years old, and it morphed in the sun. But when I brought this to Chinery and said, I will be happy to refinish it, he said, that's my favorite color. So the instrument, I designed it to have as much of an open, big sound as I could at the time, because I think archtops were transitioning into a new era of both players and literature. And so the wide open F-holes create a lower, of the box resonance is a little lower. It opens up the box, so it actually responds in the bass and the treble a little more articulation and with a little more explosive quality to it. And my instruments have always been primarily focused on being acoustic instruments that we amplify for the most part. So other than that, everything that I do on this instrument is fairly contemporary. As I'm holding it and looking at it today, I think Tyler and I have built instruments that are very similar to this, and Meagen and I have built instruments that are very similar to this, even to this day. And so in that sense, it's got the same tailpiece I make today. It's got almost the same bridge. And koa binding is something I've done my whole life for the accents and because of the multiple color reality of koa. If you look at it under a jeweler's loop, you can see blues and reds and greens. And so it's like accessorizing with your clothes. It's just beautiful, and I'm so glad to see it's been so well maintained. And anytime an instrument maker looks at an instrument 30 years later and there's not something wrong, you're relieved. So I'm just very pleased, and I'm honored to be here.
When the Archtop Foundation reappeared and all of a sudden the collection was back, I know the Chinery collection was a big deal, and then it just sort of went in hiding in a basement somewhere for, a couple of decades. What went through your mind when you said, oh, it's coming back? They're doing
Well, I always had faith that it would, because, I think Scott's vision was pretty ingenious and brilliant. And instruments like us are generational. And everybody knows who does this for a living that an instrument today is just in its infancy. Until somebody starts playing the damn thing, that's when it starts to sound good. The archtops in particular need to be in motion. And so we build them with that in mind. So my biggest concern was when I was very excited to hear that anybody cared anymore. Because for years and years I've been known as one of the blue guitar makers. And I always felt that as long as the project was honored from the original people who were part of it, and we've lost a few of these wonderful makers because we're getting older. I'm 72 at this point. I don't even believe that anymore. There was an old guy in my mirror today, and it turned out to be me. But I think it was another moment of great unification in the community. When I heard that, I was very excited. And how Ty has handled as an educational project, I was very concerned that whatever happened, it involved generational teaching, because I've been blessed with some of the best people in my shop in the world at this. These two I consider them to be maybe the two best young luthiers that are out there today. I, of course, am somewhat biased because I've had 8 years with you. I think it was 8 years, Meagen? Yeah, and we're bonded. I consider these, if I could adopt these two as my own children, I would. We're maybe too close friends to do that, but I feel like I'm so proud of both of them. Because each one of them has taken what I showed them to do, and they came with a lot of knowledge and brilliance. But I think the interpretation of my approach to the science and the art together, because I do an awful lot of application of pure science to making of guitars. But if it ever comes to art versus science, well, I've always said, and these guys will remember this, you build your intuition over your career as an intuitional physicist to study what the pure science is, and then you approach it with the art that you have learned and what your ears tell you. And I've always said, when it comes to art versus science, if you can't make that decision, art should always win, your true sense of your heart. And this is what this is all about. I think there's a higher level of intuitional practice with these instruments. And if you look at the development of instruments, this generation of archtops that are now coming out of the makers of archtops are pretty spectacular. And I think that's partially because of that. What do you get for 50 years of a career? You get hands that look like this. You get people who tell you you're incredible at what you do. But none of that really does anything for you. What you get is this deep, profound sense of, I did this to make this sound like this, and it actually sort of happened. That is the art and the beauty of it to me.
I was going to actually ask you, you have a youthful spirit, but age gets all of us sooner or later. It'll come for you too.
It's coming. I ain't getting any younger.
But I was wondering, how does it change your outlook on your work, or, did it?
It has to. And it's interesting because I love slipping up. Sometimes Tyler will probably tell you this. Sometimes I let him know he's middle-aged now, and the reality of all of this is that, age is a double-edged sword. For me, at 72 and having had a reasonably serious illness that it could have killed me, I've come back with that with a different perspective on, and I'm still very, very active in my career, but, age cannot but temper your intuitional strength. And I think that instrument making, as I said, is a cumulative collection of knowledge and trust in yourself over your entire career. So I feel today, the instruments that I think we're making today, which really is the focus of that question between Tyler and I in the shop today, because Meagen is on her own now for a number of years, and Tyler and I are still working together with his own practice well underway. I'm lucky to have him still in my shop. But I think that is really the key to it. There's this, your vision is mature. I'm hearing today some of the best instruments that we've ever built, that I've ever built. And between the technical stuff that both Tyler and I do today in the shop, we also have a very strong connection relative to our intuition. I don't think we've had a crossword in 8 years that I can remember, And so I feel truly blessed. I think there couldn't have been a better place for Tyler to have wound up in his career. And as I say, when I look at both of their work, I see the tailpiece, I see the bridges, I see the koa binding in Meagen's case, I see the heart of what is some of the things we did together, but with their own visions. And I'll never forget Meagen's tattoo of the guitar that I saw on her arm. We had some incredibly wonderful times, and some really times that pushed us to the limit of our ability to take it. And we both have lives, we both are real people. And when you attempt to integrate your real life with actually doing this for a living, you find there's a lot of more people involved with it than just you. And so I think that's part of the learning curve too. For 50 years into this, 52 years into this, at this point I'm attempting to balance my life a little bit more. And it's really why I've chosen to step a little further out of the spotlight of late, because I'm still the same guy. People are still beating my doors to make guitars, but each one is more important to me now. And what you asked me, that age question, so I'll answer that in the sense that if you want an instrument from me today, you can't call up and order it. You can't order, my website no longer exists, I don't need it. You have to sit with me and talk. And I have to like you and you have to like me. And that allows me to practice on the highest level I can. Because every one of these instruments, as Don Juan would say, it's a hole in my soul. It's like having a child. Every instrument out there that I have ever built, and there's probably about 800 or 900 that are numbered, well, close to that. There's 800 roughly numbered instruments. There's probably 200 I never numbered, and so maybe 1,000 instruments I've built to date. What's most satisfying for me is, even in this position that I'm in now, where I've created this sort of space that I can be an eccentric inventor and mad scientist and be very soulful about what I do, I still think that we're making the best instruments that we've ever built. And I think part of that is the chemistry between Tyler and I, because anybody that touches an instrument improves it. If you're in that perfect space, like I say, there's a back and forth that goes on between us. We don't even have to talk about some of this stuff, but there's the magic there, And so I think age gives you a temperament, and improves your ability. But the most satisfying thing is to feel at 72 like I'm finally making good instruments. It's one of the reasons why I think Bob Dylan's lyric, "When I paint my masterpiece, someday everything will be different when I paint my masterpiece," is maybe one of the greatest lyrical lines ever written. Because for people like us who continuously strive to put these things on the planet, it's our chosen privilege to put tools for beauty on the planet. At the end of my life, I'd like it to be ugly 0, beauty 1, because of all the awful things that I've done, all the foots I have put on the wrong places in my life, all the mistakes that I've made. I have the satisfaction of knowing I've left some tools for the beauty on the planet. And when I was so sick and I recovered, my wife retired, and she was hoping that I would slow down a little bit, and I got better. And I said, well, I have the privilege of putting more of these tools for beauty on the planet. And that's what we do. We create tools. We're tool makers, in the truest sense of the word. If somebody figured out exactly how to do this with a scientific program, so you could crank out, and eventually maybe somebody will figure that out, but the magic in this is, to me, is that intangible thing, that thing you can't touch, that magic. I really believe that there is magic in music. And so to make these tools is a privilege, and my whole life has been a player and a maker thing. And I've made a decision after a number of years of living in crazy rock and roll situations that I would choose only to make guitars, mostly for my living. And it's been a good choice for me,
Yeah.
So.
I'm kind of curious, I think you had to recuse yourself, or you decided to recuse yourself from having an opinion about who the new cohort of Blue Luthiers would be. But what did you think when you heard two of your alums, or, benchmates really, what went through your mind when you figured, oh?
Well, when Ty first talked about that, he had a group of people he put together as sort of the committee to help make this decision. What I said is I will put a word in a gentle way, but I'll have to recuse myself from my actual vote because it really wouldn't be fair. And in this business, in the condensed actual group of individuals that are obsessed with this, we all know what's really happening, And anybody who's a guitar maker knows the story really between Meagen and Tyler and I and what's happened in that world, what we've done. But I was incredibly excited about it. So to be sitting on that stage in the morning with the two of these incredible people was one of the great moments of my career, And I've had a pretty incredibly lucky career. There's been a lot of luck in my career because I've done a lot of stupid things too, And I think we all know that. There have been a lot of times when I thought this was a wrong choice for me. But perhaps that was one of the great moments of my career to sit with the two of you on the stage there because, that is what this is all about. And the best part about it is it's not over. I'm still lucky enough to have recovered enough to continue to build. I think I'm building the best instruments of my life. I think that these guys are at a spectacular point in their career. So that's truly, that's one of the great moments of my career.
That's wonderful. How did it feel when you guys got the call? What went through your mind? You know the significance of what all this is. What did you think?
Well, for me, there were two different phases of it. There was finding out that the blue guitars were back. And then there was finding out that they were going to be adding to the collection. And for me, I've known about the blue guitar collection for as long as I've been building Archtops, and so but they were already gone by then. They had gone dormant. They were like unicorns. They were this thing that, it was almost like they weren't real. And so to find out that they were back, it was almost just, I never would have had to put my hands on one, just like knowing they were back and they were going to be in the world was like the most exciting thing ever. And then I found out they were opening the collection, and it honestly kind of scared me a little bit because I was like, I didn't want to disturb the original collection. This was even before I found out I would have been invited. But I didn't know what that would mean. And it scared me a little bit because the original collection was so perfect and pure and represented all of these things to me. And quite honestly, when I was asked, my first reaction was like, oh no, I can't do this. I can't be I'm not worthy to be in the blue guitar collection. I'm not worthy. And I said that. I said that. I was like, I don't think this is a good idea. I'm not worthy. There are so many other people who deserve to be in this before me, and the response was just laughter. And
That's nice. Start building.
So, but ultimately, even throughout the process, there's been times where it's just like, I'm not worthy. But this is happening, and the last 2 years of just wrapping my head around the fact that this was going to happen, and having it. Then starting the builds, and then everything that's happened since, and everything that's happened this weekend, it's just been the most incredible thing that's ever happened to me. And then to hear, these guys talk about how it changed everything for them. That was a turning point in everybody's lives and career, and to kind of, did you know that in that moment that this was going to change everything?
Not at all.
So for me to kind of be aware of that too as it's happening, it's just it's amazing and incredible, and I'm totally honored, and I just think it's the most beautiful thing ever. So,
what do you think, Tyler?
All the stuff Meagen just said, like the imposter syndrome definitely set in immediately. Like, why you asking me and not all these other people you could have asked? But basically, since the first day I landed in Tom's shop, he's been talking about how cool the Chinery project was, and just like all the stuff that everybody's been saying all weekend, but like how cool the project was, how important it was to like everybody involved's career and the instrument in general, and then like also how cool it would be if somebody did something like that today. So then like to have that happen later on is kind of surreal.
Yeah. Well, with the two new blues here, why don't you walk me through your guitar? What did you build?
I guess it's basically my version of, I guess my evolution of one of Tom's guitars. You know, it's like all the stuff I learned from Tom, but like my personality in it. And you can see I did a quilted maple back because Tom's instrument was quilted maple. You know, like, but you know, you can look at the tailpiece, like you see the technology is the same, but it's, you know, my vibe of it. So I don't know. Yeah.
You've got your fan frets, which is a...
Yep. I like to call it multi-scale because it's more descriptive of what's going on. So for the uninitiated, the scale lengths increase from the treble to the bass side of things. For me, it's a tone and attention thing. I prefer the tone and the feel of a shorter scale length on the treble side, and I like a longer scale length on the bass. So this way you get the best of both worlds on one neck.
Yeah. Walk me through your build.
Okay. You want to hold Mando?
Yeah.
Well, it's okay. Well, for me, this is kind of this is where I've arrived after trying to figure out what I wanted to do for the last 17 years. After I left Tom's shop, you know, I knew how to make great instruments, but I didn't have the vision for what I wanted my instruments to be like. And it took me a while to find that. And so for me, this is what I've arrived at over the last, since I've left Tom's shop 10 years, what I want, not only to build, but what I want as a player. That's kind of what I've learned to rely on, is what do I want as a musician and as a player, and that's the guitar that I want to make. And so for me, that's a 15-inch small body acoustic archtop, and I love using contrasting sides with maple because I love wood. And there's so many beautiful woods out there, and they inspire me with my color work and just the whole vision of the instrument. Sometimes I'll just find a set of sides, and that's what brings the vision to my mind. So for this guitar, I used Macassar ebony on the sides, and my most favorite set of Macassar ebony. And the pieces were so remarkable that I was also able to get matching peghead, fingerboard, pickguard, tailpiece. So that celebrates my love for Macassar ebony, and which is also something I got from Tom's shop, from Smalls, the 15-inch archtop.
Oh yeah.
that had quilted mahogany sides, and he colored the top and the back, and a lot of your testadores are like that too.
Right.
And to me, and I loved those instruments so much because it celebrated all these beautiful materials, and like it just inspired a whole new vision of just kind of treating a maple archtop as like a blank canvas, you know what I mean? Like the contrast just always inspires me. And so so we got the Macassar ebony, we've got Sitka spruce top, which is the same exact wood. Tyler had the idea for us to use the same Sitka from a palette that we all three bought together. So it's linking arms through materials and paying homage to our mentor, and celebrating that whole thing. I mean, so much of what we do is just buying wood too and saving it, and like, so that's a really special part about this, is we say that our guitars share DNA. Making us family, and so then in my bindings, these are my very best bindings, actually, because of Tom's Koa. I use mahogany a lot. This here is mahogany. And I just, that, when I left Tom's shop, that was like the vision of what a guitar is supposed to be, you know what I mean? So you gotta have the bound F holes, you know, and that, and the color that mahogany or Koa offers, it's a beautiful contrast. So that there is where I feel like you can see the lineage from where I came from, is my bound F holes, my bindings, my tailpiece hinge, you know. And then I use mahogany neck. This is a figured mahogany neck. I myself have just always loved mahogany necks. Again, going back to just what do I want as a player? What do I want? I want a mahogany neck, and I want to see natural wood on the sides. So it took me a long time to figure out what I wanted to do. And I also wanted a guitar that like I can play all of the notes, because growing up, things didn't work so well up here, you know what I mean? Like things didn't, and I wanted to go up there. I flirted with going up there, but things were always out of tune and didn't sound good. And so for me, that's where my cutaway design comes from, is just being invited. I want you to feel invited to play every single note, because these are where like some of the most magical notes live, at least for me. So, but again, it took me a really long time to kind of figure out what I wanted to do. And I know for a lot of the people in the original collection, it was like trying something new that then changed where they went. But for me, this kind of represents like, I think I figured out where I want to be, at least for now, you know, because I know things are always going to change, and I'm open to that. But for now, I think I finally figured out what I want out of a guitar and what I want to build for the other musicians in the world.
I think that's one of the really admirable things of the Archtop Foundation. You know, the original blues, they said, I want you to build a huge guitar for a huge guy. And, you know, it needs to, and, you know, there was some restraints that were built into what it had to be. There's some restraints, I mean, they all have to be blue and everything. But I think that the Archtop Foundation, they gave a lot more latitude to say, you know, like, no, this time around, you know, build what you think needs to be built. And I think we got some really beautiful results here. I'm kind of curious. I mean, you both adhere to some tradition, and you both totally just disregard some tradition. Where do you think you align with tradition, Tyler, and where do you think you just diverge from tradition?
I mean, I guess I have a healthy respect for it, but I don't really, I'm not, there's so many people doing this really well already. Like I don't want to, I'm not trying to replicate anything that anybody's already done. I'd rather kind of forge my own path, you know, build on tradition rather than copy it or repeat it.
You don't, well, that's not an F hole. That's a, what would you call it? The A hole?
That's an A hole.
Yeah.
I love to do. I love to tell people that, you know, we have S holes and A holes. You can make your choice.
Yeah. But you didn't have an A hole or an F hole.
But this came, if you see like Tom's halflings, like this, I started off doing like a round sound port here in the upper bow, just because I like the way an Archtop sounds with the sound hole up here in the upper bow rather than down here. And then it kind of just evolved into this over time.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting, it pays homage to tradition. There was something kind of like it, and then sort of like a halibut's eyes that over its lifetime, it shifted over to the edge of the body, because that's where it needs to be, you know. And you know, you're building particularly, I don't want to say small, but smaller bodied guitars. I mean, this looks more like what an Archtop like of the history looks like, except a smaller version, which I think is nice, because there's female players, there's people that don't like huge instruments, and I think it's really cool that you were able to do that, and that's part of your vision.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've always been a sucker for vintage Archtops. I even though, you know, when I was growing up, like, was kind of told that I don't play the right music for them. You know, I always loved traditional Archtops. So I love that, you know, with some of the guitars I make, you know, sometimes they already look like they're 100 years old, and that's what I'm going for. And so I want my love and respect for that to come through in what I'm making, because that's where, you know, I've been in love with those instruments, you know, ever since I was a little girl. And so and I'm kind of with, like, I'm not trying to do something, I'm just trying to make a guitar, you know what I mean? Like, I don't have these crazy visions of doing these new things and this, and sometimes they come to me, but really it just comes from my wood and just trying to make an instrument. So I like that people, it's so flattering to me when people say that my guitars are like a modern traditional archtop, because that's exactly what I want out of a guitar, you know, because I love those instruments.
You know, this is an intergenerational accomplishment. There's some knowledge and some skills, and it sounds like there's some wood that got shared. Am I correct? I think I saw somewhere on Instagram or something that there might even be a drop of blue dye that got shared from one to the other. Is that true?
Yeah, that is true.
Okay.
You know, at the moment of sitting here listening to both of them talk about this, I'll add this to that, and then we go to the blue question. But watching both of you talk about the vision of your instruments, it's like skipping stones for me as I watch what's come from my tradition to their tradition. You know, I've always pushed it the edge of development. Tyler came to me with this brilliant design sense. You know, it wasn't as if he had to study this. That's the way he's wired, you know. And I saw that very early in his career. I saw that maybe the first week, which I don't know if I've ever told you that, but first couple of weeks that I knew what you had in your heart. In your case, your vision is your own vision. You know, it's purely Meagen. And that's taken you struggle with that because you are an emotional person and an emotional builder. You know, so they're two different persons. Tyler is very businesslike. He's very down to earth. He's got so much in his heart. You don't see that. They're coming out of him in the same way you see it with Meagen. And so what makes the greatest satisfaction for me, you haven't asked that question, but I'm going to answer it anyway, is that we have two separate visions that are purely their own as they move into the future. I didn't have anything to do with that vision, you know, but I got a chance to teach them the things that I thought were most important, and to not accept anything less than the best that they could ever do. And, you know, it's really satisfying for me because both of your personalities are blooming in your instruments that you're building. And, you know, it's like having a father and seeing your kids, you know. And so all that having been said, that's been maybe the most satisfying part of it as they've discussed this here in front of me. I've been listening to it and thinking about it. It's like when you see a kid of yours finally find a place in their life where they're probably going to be okay. When you're a parent, you think to yourself, what happens to my kid if I die? Will they be okay? And one of the great moments for me was seeing my daughter's house full of happy, loving kids running around. I thought, I can leave the planet now if I have to, and everybody will be fine. You know, as a parent, you have that thought. That came to me about 8 or 9 years ago. I thought, my kid is fine. I can leave, you know, and I've been blessed with that. And it's the same feeling I have with these two wonderful people because they're each determining their own futures. And, you know, there's some DNA, but I'm really glad that you guys didn't get your vision stomped on in my crazy shop, my crazy eccentric shop, you know. And so I've gotten a lot of strength back from both of these guys. And even when I was beating you up like Pi May for finishes, and I know that was not the most pleasant time and I'm beating Meagen and going, you know, if you finish these instruments, you learn to do this color work, you'll never have trouble selling your guitars. And you must remember those moments. And,
I'm so grateful for them.
Well, I'm glad to hear that because it was hard sometimes to do that. And Tyler, you know, came with this really unique design vision. And so he's a really interesting guy. And, you know, he's quiet. He likes to let his work speak for himself. And, you know, I really deeply respect that about him. You know, just like I say, so for me, it's incredibly satisfying to see that their own visions are honed. You know, I'm going to be gone before they're finished with their careers. I'll be sitting up in some bistro in heaven trying to play a few tunes, listening. Well, maybe I'll be in purgatory for a while. I'll probably be there for at least a few weeks. But, you know, watching what their visions are, that's been incredibly satisfying. And so, you know, sorry to interject that, but I had to. The question about the blue dye. When the blue dye came to me, they sent us this very watery thin blue dye with a certain color number on it. And most of us were struggling with that, the original blue makers. And I happened to have bought some powdered aniline dye that was maybe 40 years in its container that was the same color number from Mohawk. And I thought, oh boy, I'm gonna make a really deep blue guitar. But I still have that original material. I still have the original bottle of dye that I only used about half of from the Chinery project, which was the spec color. It's been sitting in my eccentric shop for years and years and years and years. And I think it was you guys who suggested, it might have been Tyler who suggested, let's take a little drop of that and help enhance the DNA. So we may see a little teeny bit of color change, which to me is exciting. Instruments have life. They're like us. They live. When you build an instrument like this, it might be 400 years before it's unplayable. It might be somewhere in somebody's attic. Archtops have an incredibly long life as instruments. And so when we build an instrument and put it on the planet, we're looking at 200 years. It'll be somebody taking the fingerboard off of this instrument maybe in 200 years and thinking, oh, how did they do this? Hopefully. So that's deep stuff. That's the kind of stuff that keeps you going when you feel like, why did I ever do this? And there are days, even at this point, sometimes people come to me and they say, wow. I'll tell a quick story. One of my baseball teammates came to me and he said, the first time we were on the field, he said, I make some guitars too. And I said, that's great. And we were talking. Came to me the next week and he said, I'll never forget this, standing there in uniform, and he goes, I did a deep dive into your work. Wow. And I said, come behind the dugout with me, Rocky. And we stepped behind and I said, I'm just a mediocre ball player here. I'm not a guitar maker, I'm just a guy, I'm just trying to hold my own. In this world, with all the people telling us what we do, you have to maintain your own vision. You have to understand that I still have a lot of self-doubt when I build an instrument. I still feel like one of these days I'm going to paint my masterpiece. It ain't never going to happen, because we've already painted masterpieces. We've already done that sort of stuff, and it's going to go on until we're going off the planet. So the blue dye DNA, any DNA that we can generate is a rare privilege in this business. And so I feel particularly blessed that I've been able to have a career and continuing to have a career that is pretty vital, but that I've been able to have these people come out of my shop who are their own magnificent artisans, and that's been the way it has been in my shop for years. There's a way I do this. It's really never been any different. At one point I had 7 people working in my 700 square foot shop, but that was 20 years ago. The reality of it is it's been a wonderful dance. And so the blue dye project was it's typical Tyler. He comes up with this idea. It's quite brilliant, and we listen to it. And but he doesn't blow his own horn much, and would you say that's true?
Totally. Yeah. No. It's
Sorry, can I interject some unsolicited opinion about something? The instrument in particular, we have this connection with Tom. So he mentioned earlier we're the tool makers. Something that I've observed is that I think is really cool about the Archtop in particular is this relationship that we have with Tom and our feeling that we learned this thing directly from the source, and it's our job to bring it into the future and just keep the thing alive and grow it and share it with everybody else. That same thing exists in the people that use the tools that we make, the players and their mentors, and it's this cool just kind of parallel that I feel makes these instruments even more special. And that's something that Peter is really amplified with this show. We all love Peter, and this show is going to be part of Archtop history for sure. So thanks Peter.
Yeah.
Well, that is one of the things too that made me fall in love with Archtops, was reading about the history of them and the history of all of these beautiful relationships between apprentices and mentors. And I knew reading, a box of tissues and reading about D'Angelico, and and it was just this is my way forward. There's so many ways you can learn how to build guitars today, but I knew from the beginning that I wanted to find my mentor and have that kind of relationship and that lifelong give, not take, a give
relationship. And I found that with Tom, and I've also found that with Tyler. We've shared so much with each other over these years that he has influenced me just as much. And there's a lot of what he's taught me and how to look at things, and just he came to this with so much knowledge and experience in the outside world of how you make things, where I learned how to make things by making guitars. And he's opened up my world and my way of looking at
what I'm doing and how I approach it and understanding it. I mean, and so not only did Tom give me the foundation, help me pour the foundation I'm standing on, but the family has grown, and then I got Tyler, and it didn't stop when I left Tom's shop, because then I got a buddy who could help me still grow, and that's just been something I didn't realize I would get out of this. So I want to add that too. There's Tom's influence, and I also have a lot of Tyler's influence too.
This may sound kind of heady, but if we just take a minute, how does it feel in your body right now?
I want to cry.
my head feels hot.
It's before noon, so I don't recognize this time frame. I'm not even sure I might be dreaming this, but it's a spectacular moment. These have been spectacular moments. These are why we spend these years doing this. My epitaph will say, and this will be the case, if I should die, should that ever happen to me, what will be, and I'm planning on not having that, but if it appears on my tombstone, it will say, and I've said this probably to both of you, I was blessed. I was blessed to put these tools for beauty on the planet. I'd known this since I was very young. That's what I was going to be doing. My name comes from instrument making in the Black Forest. It's the Ribbecke. It's been in my DNA. But the best part of it haven't been the instruments. These are beautiful. They're wonderful. We fix our souls in these. We give them life. And we actually have to believe this. We have to believe a little bit in the metaphysical aspects of it, no matter how scientific we are. But the people were the best part of this journey for me. And these incredible relationships. My relationship, and when you guys were in my shop, and particularly when Meagen was in my shop, I used to talk about community all the time, because I was very involved with bringing the world community of makers together, became very involved with all of that, was on boards of directors, and, I was always doing that kind of stuff. And so, I feel like post-pandemic, the world has changed an awful lot. I'm looking forward to what I think will be the roaring 20s for us now in the next decade of development for guitars and music. Things are actually falling into a better slot. And I think people have been so shaken up in this huge snow globe that we've had that we're just now realizing that this brilliant new future is opening up. So I'm very optimistic, but that's what's most important here. The guitars are great. We're fixing these molecular arrangements and making these things and putting these tools for beauty will be gone, but the instruments will live after us, And so all of that, the weight of that sometimes becomes, you have to forget about that sometimes and just throw the ball. And that's a big part of the skill of this, and particularly in the case of Meagen, who I worried about way more because of her sensitivity. Some people are sort of antennas to the universe, and somebody asked me that recently. In fact, my doctor who was asking me about that, and it was a very insightful guy. He said, he asked me to tell me about myself, and I said, I'm an antenna for the universe. Some days I feel lousy because as an artist, I have to open my eyes to what's going on in the world and let it come into me. Then this is the art part of it. And, it's not an easy choice to do this. And it's one of the reasons I worried more about you, because I know you opened yourself. You're an antenna, and Tyler's a little more guarded and careful with that. I think he came from a different background, and I don't worry about him as much in that sense. He's just a different wiring as we all come. But like watching you two together, like I say, it's as satisfying for me as having my own children. And I've been blessed to have really great children. I don't know why that happened to me. So in that sense, I could cry because of that. And so I consider you guys family. You'll always be that way. And whatever happens with us, I don't remember many crosswords between you and I either. Do you?
No, that was
pretty incredible.
The most magical time of my life. I thought I was going to be there forever. That was the only hard part, was leaving, having to leave. Because when I got there, it was just like, this is going to be forever. This is forever. And the reality of having to move on taught me, that was when I really learned that nothing is forever.
Sure.
Nothing is forever until it is. But that's what this is all about, because even after we're gone, they're still here making the music. But that was the only hard part that was the only difficult thing. Tom's shop was when it came time to leave.
Well, I think we're probably almost coming time to leave here, but there's this jubilant little unexpected child in my lap, sort of the unplanned.
Plot twist.
Yeah. I think we should, here, I'm going to hold your blue guitar, which I'm sorry to have to do this, but what is the deal with this?
Yeah, what's the deal with that?
I have no idea. This was, you guys should have been there. This is Mando, and this for me was kind of the key that made me feel like this was supposed to be happening. Because even when it came time to start the build, I was like, oh, I don't know about this, guys. I don't know if I should be in this collection. I don't know about this. But it came time, and I was like, well, I have to start now, and I still don't know about it. And as I started selecting my very, very best materials, that was the mission, get my best. I'm using my best. They started also harvesting. I'd harvest what I needed for a guitar, and there'd be a little scrap left over. And I was like, oh, look, that's perfect size for a Mando. I'll put that aside and do a super special Mando someday. And at first it started with the back, and then it happened with the top. And it was when I was making the neck, there was this cute little block of mahogany left over. And to those who have made a mandolin, it's the most, to go from making a guitar to making a mandolin, there's a joy that Mandos bring to the shop because they are just so damn cute. Nobody can resist it. Tiny little head blocks and
There we go.
Good. Tiny head blocks, tiny frets, tiny necks. And so when I saw the neck blank, the scrap left over from the guitar, I got that flood of joy of like, oh, that's so cute. And that's when I was like, oh my God, there's mandolins in all of this material. And then it just happened. I was like, why? I can't wait. This has to happen now. They have to happen together. So they are a true pair. Every single material is all from the same, they're basically, Mando is the scraps of the guitar, and everything was done together. The tops were carved together, the backs were carved together, everything, frets were cut, prepped. Mando has a very strong personality and character, and it really, once Mando came into play, it really feels like everything just happened in front of me, and I was just doing what I was told and a witness to this crazy, crazy thing. The two of them coming to life, being completed within 24 hours, strung up at the same time, making music at the same time. So this is the plot twist, and this was what really made me feel like, yeah, I am supposed to be here. This is supposed to be happening. This is right. And so Mando and guitar are the blue pair.
Yeah. Do they get jealous of each other?
Oh my God. No, guitar doesn't. Guitar is mature, gets it, has done this before. Mando, Mando would get extremely jealous because guitar would always go first. And then Mando would be like, well, what is going on? What about me? And there's a different order of operations at some point between the guitars and the mandolins, and Mando didn't understand that and would be freaking out, and but then Mando matured too, and then Mando was brave, and there were times where and it was really as we got into the spray booth and got color, that's when Mando really grew up. And we had to do scary things, went blue, and I was so proud. The guitar knew what was happening the whole time. Mando grew up and is now a musical instrument. And so, Mando, there was a lot of jealousy at times. There was a lot of fits. There was a lot, but again, I was just a witness to all of it. And it was crazy, but it was the most beautiful and amazing thing that's ever happened to me.
Well, what a nice little surprise to come out of the process. I think we should wrap it up. I want to thank all of you for taking the time to do this. I've been huge fans of your work, like I said, for a long time, and it's an honor to sit here with you. I just feel like I'm surrounded by greatness here, and it's a really nice experience. Thank you so much.
Thanks for bringing us together.
Thank you, Jim.
I feel like I'm surrounded with greatness with you, so thank you so much. It's just an incredible moment.
All right, as promised, I'm going to show you one of Tyler Wells' guitars up close and personal. This is an LHT Fugue, which is the same model as Tyler's contribution to the Blue Guitar Collection. This one is blue-gray, not blue, but it's the same model. Every single piece of this guitar is made by Tyler except the tuners and the pickup, and those are built specifically for him and have the LHT logo on them. In terms of materials and basic measurements, this guitar has a 16-inch lower bow, and the body is just over 2.5 inches deep. I don't know how he did it, but Tyler integrates an arm bevel into the arch top. That's a lot of geometry. This makes for a very comfortable guitar that nestles close to your body, right up under your arm. It has a squared Florentine cutaway, looks very sleek and modern. It's integrated with this very accessible heel joint, very, very comfortable. The back and sides are flamed big leaf maple. The top is Carpathian spruce from Ukraine. The neck is a flamed maple 4-piece tapered lamination with a carbon fiber reinforcement. Has an ebony fretboard with a compound radius 12 to 16 inches. Has a really fast action. Position markers are aluminum, polished bone nut. It has a multi-scale neck, 25.7 on the low E and 24.7 on the high E. It looks a little unfamiliar at first, but in reality, that difference in scale just disappears once it gets in your hands. All of your chord grips and scale shapes, they don't change at all. The bridge and the tailpiece are made of ebony. The head plate, pickguard, and hardware accents are dyed and stabilized maple burl. They're just gorgeous. The guitar is finished in nitrocellulose lacquer, and when you open the case, it smells wonderful with that sweet lacquer scent you smell on a luxury yacht. The tuners are Goto 510 Mini Cosmos with ebony buttons. The pickup is a custom parallelogram Kent Armstrong that looks like it's designed to line up with the strings of a multi-scale neck. Volume and tone are on thumb wheels tucked neatly under the pickguard. I think the most visually striking and sound-altering part of this guitar is the offset sound hole that's pushed up to the top of the upper bow. Most archtops have F-holes on the face of the guitar, and the placement of those F-holes seems to have a big impact on how much of the top is activated from string vibration that transfers through the bridge. I heard from Ken Parker before he passed away that the part of the top between the sound hole and the edge of the guitar body is not a very acoustically active piece of the top. So if you push your F-holes closer to the middle of the guitar, in essence, you're reducing the size of active soundboard. And conversely, if you push them out to the edges, you get more active soundboard. A few builders have messed around with this concept. Tom Ribbecke's Halfling model puts a large circular sound hole on the upper bow of the guitar. And Tyler's design seems to be an evolution of that. As you can see, Tyler pushes the sound hole all the way to the edge of the top, which allows the top to stay rigid because there's no holes near the bridge where all the downward pressure takes place. And in theory, it maximizes the amount of active soundboard. Also, I think it's a pretty well-known acoustic phenomenon that when you push the sound hole toward the bass side of the instrument, you get more low end. And all I can say is that this design approach really creates a big egress for the voice of the instrument to come out. And this guitar has a big, full-bodied voice. It's very high fidelity, full range response for all of the notes, from the very bottom of the fretboard to the very top. And also because the sound hole is so close to the player acoustically, it just sounds like a concert hall in your lap. It's amazing.
This is the first time you've seen this in...
It's First time I've seen it actually set up well.
30
in
years
about,
or
in 20 years, yeah.
Yeah.
Usually the size of this goddamn thing.
It's a big ass guitar.
What's that?
They're in size order.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
like those little cups or what it
Yeah,
was.
nesting
Yeah, yeah,
nesting
yeah.
blue guitars, yeah.
If we could.
Where's Mando? Then it would be. Then it
Oh,
would
Mando.
complete
Fuck.
the picture.
Amanda.
Tyler, oh my God, Mando is freaking out.
This is good looking.
Mando.
Oh, Mando.
Oh yeah, Mando.
It's better I can do this. It's yours, but I don't want to. This Pedicate puts it like this.
Yeah.
Who's that guy
Yeah.
behind the heads? Are we playing these things at all?
If you'd like to,
Tyler
questions?
really wants to.
I
play.
don't want to play at all.
Let me know what you want.
Yeah, we should.
Do you want to hold Mando? Like for the interview, are you going to be in the shot?
I'll be in it every once in a while when I cut
Okay,
to
then I'll
me.
take Mando.
You hold it.
Mando's not going to like that. Tyler's going to shred.
Shred, yeah.
Well, we're good. We're fine. Well, I didn't say it on the corner, but Mando wanted her own cell phone at some point.
What a satisfying moment. Nice to hear she still sings.
Yeah.